We want to tell you the story of an extraordinary family who shaped the fate of Europe for over 600 years. This is an exhibition about the Habsburgs, one of the most important dynasties in world history, ruling great parts of Europe for over 600 years. We show you in the exhibition the most important personalities of this dynasty, and we will show you how they used art and artists in order to promote their power, their image, and to promote themselves as heroes of world history.
This exhibition is really monumental in the history of the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. It includes almost 100 objects from the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. The exhibition includes a wide spectrum of art and objects, including incredible paintings, decorative arts, scientific instruments, and antiquities from ancient Rome. The exhibition also includes armor and a fantastic carriage that was used in the 18th century, as well as a sleigh used at the same time period.
So what we try to show you here is, on one hand, the story of this family, how they developed during the centuries, and on the other hand, how they used art and artists in order to portray and establish their power all over Europe.
The Habsburgs ruled Austria and much of Europe for around 600 years. And during these centuries, they collected many wonderful objects. And most of them, the ones that have survived, are now here in the collections of the Kunsthistorisches Museum.
The Kunsthistorisches Museum was opened in 1891. It was meant as a treasure house for the Habsburg art collection, and of course comprised the most wonderful works of art that the Habsburg family ever collected.
Since the late Middle Ages, the Habsburgs were very good in using art as means of propaganda and for unifying also their very diverse countries spread all over Europe.
In Austria, we have a saying, "May all the world wage war. You, lucky Austria, will marry." Because many of the countries over which the Habsburgs ruled, they did not have to conquer, but they inherited, or they married the heiress, or the other people died off, and it just came to them without a war. The first of these fantastic, important marriages was that of Emperor Maximilian I, who married the richest heiress in Christendom, Mary of Burgundy, in 1477, the daughter of the last Duke of Burgundy. An amazing amount of power, money came to the Habsburgs through this marriage.
One of the biggest supporters of tournament was Emperor Maximilian I.
He is also known as the Last Knight because he was a very good fighter in tournaments. He held enormous, beautiful tournaments designed by great artists to show his power as a manly ruler.
He invented even new techniques, new ways of fighting tournaments to make it more spectacular, more interesting for the people to look at, to watch. Great tournaments were great spectacles of sports and political propaganda. The armor of Emperor Maximilian I from around 1492 is a great masterpiece of late medieval armor making. It was made by Lorenz Helmschmied, who is truly one of the great masters of armor making of all times. If you compare him to painters of the same time, it is kind of Leonardo da Vinci of the armorers, or Raphael or Titian of the armorers. So he's really at the top of armor making, and he worked for the best, for the most important people like the Habsburg Emperors, the Habsburg family, and other high-ranking noble people. Armor was very expensive. If you relate it to the 21st century, it's like a sports car or an expensive apartment. That was a really expensive work of art. The traveling exhibition in the United States is a very rare opportunity to see armor from the imperial collection outside of Vienna.
The Habsburgs were not only very important in a political point of view, but they also gathered around enormous treasures of arts in order to portray their power and importance all over Europe.
The Habsburg collections date back to the medieval times when they first started out with collecting coins and medals. But after a while, of course, they started also collecting arms and armor, painting, jewelry, Kunstkammer objects, which was a specific type of collecting which was established in the age of discovery. A Kunstkammer comprises all the wonders of the world. It's something like an archive of wisdom to be shared. All this was handed down from generation to generation, and this accounts for the fact that the imperial collections of the Habsburg family are amongst the most important art collections in the world.
The painting collection is really quite astonishing. We're all so excited about the works that are traveling here to the United States. One of my personal favorites is the painting of Jupiter and Io by Correggio. It, along with several other paintings in the exhibition, really represents this era of great interest in mythological painting, the stories of the loves of the gods.
Jupiter had to change his appearance when he visited his mortal lovers because nobody could bear to look at him. And with Io, he changed himself into a cloud. And if you look at the painting carefully, you can see his arm embracing her, and you can even see his face in the cloud, kissing her on the cheek. It's such a ridiculous story. A man or a god in a cloud making love to a girl, but he really brings this to life. He brings this classical myth to life. And it is, as I said, one of the most erotic, one of the most wonderful paintings.
Empress Maria Theresa became one of the most important persons in European history. She was able to establish a new modern state, and she was also able to strengthen the power of her family by marriage. This is a great tradition for the Habsburgs, and she continued this tradition. She had 16 children, and most of her children did political marriages, the most famous of which is the marriage of her youngest daughter, Marie Antoinette, with the future King of France, Louis XVI. This was an exceptional marriage because France, until that moment, was always the big enemy of Austria, and Maria Theresa managed with that marriage to come close to her former enemy. One of the highlights in the exhibition is the gorgeous, completely gilded sleigh of Empress Maria Theresa. You see that this sleigh is just really an art object, like a mountain of curls and of ornaments.
It's so beautifully carved, elaborately gilded. It would have been quite spectacular to see this sleigh moving across the snow and ice in Vienna in the 18th century.
But not only the sleigh was beautiful, but the horses were covered with beautiful harnesses made of silk velvet and gold embroidery and hundreds of beautiful gilded bells. And the bells made kind of a music, so they have different tones. And so when the horse is moving, you hear all these different tones, and a kind of very pleasant music is played by the horse moving over the snow. There is a wonderful portrait of 2 of the 5 sons of Empress Maria Theresa here in the exhibition, and it shows her eldest son, Josef II, who became emperor after the death of his father, and the second son, Leopold. It shows the 2 brothers during a travel in Rome, which was really fashionable in that period. Everybody who had great education had to travel to Italy. This painting was so famous and so beautiful that it was copied several times, and Maria Theresa loved it so much that she even ennobled the painter Battoni. The last part of the exhibition is dedicated to the 19th and early 20th century, to the rulers of the Habsburg dynasty, Franz Josef and his beautiful wife Elizabeth. Elizabeth was something like the Lady Di of the 19th century. She was really well known all over Europe and even all over the world for her extraordinary beauty. She was also a fashion icon. Franz Josef was a very conservative ruler. He was normally wearing military uniform, and on all his portraits and representations we always see him in uniform. Franz Josef was one of the few Habsburgs who was not a great art collector, but on the other hand, he shaped Vienna into a new modern capital. So our museum was built under the reign of Emperor Franz Josef, and in this building for the first time all the collections of the dynasty were put together and opened to the public.
We are so excited to bring the Habsburg exhibition to the US.
In fact, it's amazing that a show like this is possible outside of Europe.
This will be the first time that we will be telling the story of Habsburg collecting, represented by the most wonderful masterpieces of the museum.
The Kunsthistorisches Museum has never loaned out a significant group of their objects before like this, not since an exhibition traveled around the world after World War II of treasures from the Kunsthistorisches Museum. So we're really not exaggerating when we say this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.